Good afternoon, YouTube. Today, Trump makes a historic announcement in regards to the World Health Organization losing the patronage of the United States, and also to an announcement to hold China accountable for its many crimes. Please enjoy.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm here today to talk about our relationship with China and several new measures to protect American security and prosperity. China's pattern of misconduct is well known. For decades, they've ripped off the United States like no one has ever done before. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year were lost dealing with China, especially over the years during the prior administration. China raided our factories, offshored our jobs, gutted our industries, stole our intellectual property, and violated their commitments under the World Trade Organization. To make matters worse, they are considered a developing nation, getting all sorts of benefits that others, including the United States, are not entitled to. But I have never solely blamed China for this. They were able to get away with the theft like no one was able to get away with before because of past politicians and, frankly, past presidents. But unlike those who came before, my administration negotiated and fought for what was right. It's called fair and reciprocal treatment. China has also unlawfully claimed territory in the Pacific Ocean, threatening freedom of navigation and international trade. And they broke their word to the world on ensuring the autonomy of Hong Kong. The United States wants an open and constructive relationship with China, but achieving that relationship requires us to vigorously defend our national interests. The Chinese government has continually violated its promises to us and so many other nations. These plain facts cannot be overlooked or swept aside. The world is now suffering as a result of the malfeasance of the Chinese government. China's cover-up of the Wuhan virus allowed the disease to spread all over the world, instigating a global pandemic that has cost more than 100,000 American lives and over 1 million lives worldwide. Chinese officials ignored their reporting obligations to the World Health Organization and pressured the World Health Organization to mislead the world when the virus was first discovered by Chinese authorities. Countless lives have been taken and profound economic hardship has been inflicted all around the globe. They strongly recommended against me doing the early ban from China, but I did it anyway and was proven to be 100% correct. China has total control over the World Health Organization, despite only paying $40 million per year compared to what the United States has been paying, which is approximately $450 million a year. We have detailed the reforms that it must make and engage with them directly, but they have refused to act. Because they have failed to make the requested and greatly needed reforms, we will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving urgent global public health needs. The world needs answers from China on the virus. We must have transparency. Why is it that China shut off infected people from Wuhan to all other parts of China? It went nowhere else. It didn't go to Beijing. It went nowhere else. But they allowed them to freely travel throughout the world, including Europe and the United States. The death and destruction caused by this is incalculable. We must have answers, not only for us, but for the rest of the world. This pandemic has underscored the crucial importance of building up America's economic independence, reshoring our critical supply chains, and protecting America's scientific and technological advances. For years, the government of China has conducted illicit espionage to steal our industrial secrets, of which there are many. Today, I will issue a proclamation to better secure our nation's vital university research and to suspend the entry of certain foreign nationals from China who we have identified as potential security risks. I am also taking action to protect the integrity of America's financial system, by far the best in the world. I am instructing my presidential working group on financial markets to study the differing practices of Chinese companies listed on the U.S. financial markets with the goal of protecting American investors. Investment firms should not be subjecting their clients to the hidden and undue risks associated with financing Chinese companies that do not play by the same rules. Americans are entitled to fairness and transparency. Several of the most significant actions we're taking pertain to deeply troubling situations unfolding in Hong Kong. This week, China unilaterally imposed control over Hong Kong's security. This was a plain violation of Beijing's treaty obligations with the United Kingdom in the Declaration of 1984 and explicit provisions of Hong Kong's Basic Law. It has 27 years to go. The Chinese government's move against Hong Kong is the latest in a series of measures that are diminishing the city's long-standing and very proud status. This is a tragedy for the people of Hong Kong, the people of China, and indeed the people of the world. China claims it is protecting national security, but the truth is that Hong Kong was secure and prosperous as a free society. Beijing's decision reverses all of that. It extends the reach of China's invasive state security apparatus into what was formerly a bastion of liberty. China's latest incursion, along with other recent developments that degraded the territory's freedoms, makes clear that Hong Kong is no longer sufficiently autonomous to warrant the special treatment that we have afforded the territory since the handover. China has replaced its promised formula of one country, two systems with one country, one system. Therefore, I am directing my administration to begin the process of eliminating policy exemptions that give Hong Kong different and special treatment. My announcement today will affect the full range of agreements we have with Hong Kong, from our extradition treaty to our export controls on dual-use technologies and more, with few exceptions. We will be revising the State Department's travel advisory for Hong Kong to reflect the increased danger of surveillance and punishment by the Chinese state security apparatus. We will take action to revoke Hong Kong's preferential treatment as a separate customs and travel territory from the rest of China. The United States will also take necessary steps to sanction PRC and Hong Kong officials directly or indirectly involved in eroding Hong Kong's autonomy and just, if you take a look, absolutely smothering Hong Kong's freedom. Our actions will be strong. Our actions will be meaningful. More than 2 decades ago, on a rainy night in 1997, British soldiers lowered the Union flag and Chinese soldiers raised the Chinese flag in Hong Kong. The people of Hong Kong felt simultaneously proud of their Chinese heritage and their unique Hong Kong identity. The people of Hong Kong hoped that in the years and decades to come, China would increasingly come to resemble its most radiant and dynamic city. The rest of the world was electrified by a sense of optimism that Hong Kong was a glimpse into China's future, not that Hong Kong would grow into a reflection of China's past. In every decision, I will continue to proudly defend and protect the workers, families, and citizens of the United States of America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's the conclusion of the speech. Uh, I just have a few words to say about what's going on. Hong Kong is not the first victim of China, nor will it be the last. Taiwan, as everybody knows, and that the World Health Organization denied knowing the submitted data from Taiwanese doctors about the special transmission, the transmission from person to person, which was crucial at the time, and decided to ignore that information from Taiwan because it doesn't recognize it as a country. Vietnam is currently silently being annexed piece by piece by the corrupt China, Red China, in every way possible. They send in whatever they have to send in. They throw money at the problem. There's a famous saying over there: you throw money at a problem till it goes away. If a little bit money doesn't work, give more, give more, give them women, give them drink, give them whatever. But if that doesn't work, then the power of the bullet will do. Xi Jinping has pretty much said the same thing. I can achieve a lot with money. And it shows you the kind of end game that they have for the world, that the loss of life means absolutely nothing. And that's the philosophy of the Chinese. Is not Chinese, the Chinese Communist Party. Really, that's the biggest enemy of the Chinese as well, because they've murdered more of their own people than they have worldwide. Chairman Mao already proved how bad communism can get when it's given totalitarian control. And I think Trump has always known, but he behaves like a gentleman, trying to see if maybe China can behave like another member of the great global community. You sort of extend that goodwill, hoping that you'll receive goodwill in return. And what you received is betrayal and murder and deceit. So I want to end this argument, this vlog, I guess you could say. I hope that the world will begin to see the necessity of another great war. And I don't say that lightly. China is the enemy of all free Western society and any free democracy anywhere. And their influence keeps growing and growing. They're silently trying to undermine our values, our freedoms in society by buying us off piece by piece. One of their favorite tactics is to buy debt. So when you look at Spain and Italy, they were carrying a massive debt load after let's call it the collapse of the EU economy. And at the end of that, Greece was one of the main players that lost a tremendous amount of money for the rest of Europe. But so was Italy, so was Spain. And China bought that debt. They bought infrastructure, they bought businesses. You consider it a bailout. And what they got in return was infinite influence into their politics, which is what they were after in the first place. You look at Vietnam, they keep trying to press the northern border, but it's more than that. They infiltrate every piece of infrastructure in society, politicians, intimidation by the bullet. If you complain against the power in Beijing, you can disappear tomorrow. It's so fast. It's a reality that people live every day. Something that you couldn't have here, but I know because of friends or relatives that live there. And it's no joke. that kind of political dissent, that freedom that you have to complain, and imagine you could be killed for such speaking. So Trump has an obligation to protect America, but I would say that he even has an obligation to fulfill that Canada should be fulfilling at this time, which is bring it back to balance. The Pacific is already under massive preparation for the pretense of war. Australia, Japan, the United States all have several fleets surrounding China to try to prevent them from further expansionism. They're actually stealing sand from the shores of Vietnam to build artificial islands for naval bases all over the Pacific. And the Chinese keep expanding using these bases, but stealing. They actually go in and they take sand from the Vietnam coast to build these massive islands. And they keep growing their fleet as if they're preparing to engage in a massive naval battle, you could say. So I'm thinking that the prudent thing to do is, when an enemy keeps trying to hide their face, force them to expose it. It's like you play shadow games. You can only play shadow games so long before your opponent is onto you, or like boxing. I think Trump should deal a big blow to them now. Economically, that's one way of warfare, but to demonstrate the proper, who is the real superpower in this world? It's not fake China. It's the United States. And I picked that side because that side at least will stand for freedom and human rights. And I mean, it's much deeper than that. They'll stand to protect human life, no matter what. So if you're neutral, as a neutral party, you cannot remain neutral in a battle between the United States and China. Because if you've been paying attention, and you've been watching the actions of the Communist Party of China, then you'll know that they're deliberately trying to sabotage the world from trying to find out their true nature, their murderous nature. And I think that Trump should try to begin the idea of America going to war with that country. And not just America, but Australia, Japan, Spain, Italy. I want everybody at the very end of this, because it should culminate into something, at least that was my hope. I want everybody to reevaluate how China behaves, that dirty tactics that they play. You don't even have to look. I'll give you an easy example. When you go on eBay, you look at the ratings of, say you look at a product, you type in a product. Several countries will sell you that product. If you look at the ones sold by the Chinese, you'll realize that their scoring is tremendously below, say, the United States, or a European, or even a Japanese, or an Australian seller. And the reason that is because they play their dirty tactics online. They make it, there's deceit in the listing, for example. There's deceit in the description. There's deceit in the shipping. There's deceit in how or whom is selling. It's so murky that you just don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Honesty and integrity mean much more to the world than that kind of I'll overshadow you with the power of money. I look at the way the United States behaves under Obama, and I know that the Chinese were just flagrantly destroying America, and Obama was endorsing that kind of behavior. But when Trump came in, the Chinese knew the game was up. Sooner or later, he'd be on to them. And there'll be many people that that want to speak against Trump in this issue, or against me for being so... I am saying to you from personal experience that I know how the Chinese operate, and I tell you, they would annex the world if they were given complete freedom to do so. That's the kind of behavior. Beware. Don't think that they're beneath that kind of thing. War, the murder of hundreds of millions of people doesn't mean anything. Nothing. For all we know, they could release another virus sooner or later and it put us crippled again. You never know. But it could happen. The point is, you have to be prepared. You have to be ready. If the enemy keeps making, fake gestures, something like that, they shouldn't let him get away with that. I mean, Trump's message is very, very concise. He pointed out basically everything in recent memory that I could think of that they've done. But coronavirus was like one of their more desperate attempts to control the situation. And I don't care what anybody says. The way they behave is extremely guilty. China, I talk about China. The way they behave is extremely guilty. You can convolute the question. You could say, well, they didn't know this, they didn't know that. But in the end, the result is the same. And you could say, well, a million, it could have been worse. No. You think about that kind of power that they're wielding, that they're able to essentially stop activity throughout the world, and the amount of dead bodies that they stack up inside cathedrals inside of Italy and Spain to be taken away by the military, to be cremated. You think about it. That is just a taste of how callous that government is. And they don't care to achieve that kind of global expansionism. Because they're not doing it by war. They're doing it by economics. They're buying us off piece by piece. They're buying off property. They're buying off debt. They're buying off politicians. They can buy everything. But I think now is the time, no more time for pretense. I think the Americans really need to step up and reestablish peace in this world again. And you can only establish peace if you go to war. You can only establish peace if you go to war. There's no other way. Because China will keep on playing games with everyone until they learn. It's like disciplining a small child, a baby. Not a baby, but say a toddler. This is not the right way. Change your trajectory. We don't have the kind of leadership in Canada that maintains our prestige as international peacekeepers. But if we did, then I think a different story would be playing out for Canada. But right now, I believe Canada is a puppet of China. They so desperately want to flatter the Chinese government. It's pathetic in my estimation. But again, I hope that some part of me hopes that China will change its tactics, but that's a naive dream. They will never change their attitude. They must be forced to. So I hope that the Americans now deal a heavy blow to teach them, to re-educate them about that kind of nonsensical communist, the communist desire to consume everything, to destroy everything. The world should be permitted to live in peace and fairness. And much more than that, You cannot pretend that you had nothing to do with the fact that the North Koreans are extremely violent. North Korea is a puppet of China. So no matter what you do, you look at it very seriously at the situation, you can actually trace it back, the origin back to China Communist Party, that government with such evil intent to destroy everything as long as they can be king of the ashes. So I'm sorry to let this video go on so long. Thank you for watching, and good night.